How does a person benefit from explanations? The way a person benefits from shuroohat is he concentrates on doing at-talkhis wal-hifz. At-talkhis wal-hifz. To summarize and to memorize. And I feel like this is not given much importance nowadays. And people, they talk about hifz al-mutun only. Hifz al-mutun is the asas. It's the skeleton that you use to retain information. But what are you retaining if you're not retaining the explanation? Everyone understand this point, right? So what do you summarize from these books? Number one, al-qawa'id, principles. Number two, al-dawabit, right? Dawabit are like principles, but it's at a more concise level and it's more specified to a specific chapter, right? Number three, evidences, adilla, that are relevant to the issue. Number four, aqwal of salaf that are relevant to the issue, right? Number five, furuq, differences between masail. Number six, at-ta'rifat, definitions of things. Number seven, at-taqsimat, divisions of things, categories, things being divided into different things, right? Very, very, very important. Now, what you do, you summarize it. You don't write the whole book out. You summarize those important points. You summarize those important points and you have them in a notebook. You have it in a notebook and you're going to memorize from this notebook. Memorize from this notebook. Sometimes you may not have to memorize it like you memorize the Quran, but if you memorize it well enough, it'll be like as if you memorized it like the Quran. A method that you can use, and I used this, and it benefited me a lot. What I would do, I would have my summary. And I would find a quiet place. And I would act as if I am teaching the whole room. And I'm walking around. And act as if I'm teaching. There's no one there. But I imagine as if I'm teaching students. Now, I repeat it a few times. So, the first couple of times I look at my notes and then I explain. Then the last couple of times after that, I explain it off the top of my head. I explain it off the top of my head and I write it in an order which is mantiqi. Yani, it's an order that can be recalled. It can be recalled very easily. And I use different colored pens. So the blue pen I use to write my main text. Black pen I use to write the aqwal, the statements of the Sahaba and the Salaf and stuff like that. The green pen I use to write a hadith and verses from the Quran. The red pen I use to write down principles and titles. Main titles is in red, subtitles are in green. Right? Now the different color coding helps me memorize. It helps me memorize. Now, why is it so important to memorize these talqisat? I'll give you a story. Or I'll mention something that happened. And this is the last thing I'll mention. We would, once a week, we would go to Sheikh Khalid Mashaykh, we would go to him, and we would read to him his explanation on the poem of Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya and Qawa'id al-Usuliyya by Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen. We were studying the book with the Sheikh, yani on a different day. But with the Sheikh, what we would do with the Sheikh is that we would memorize his explanation in terms of those important things, adilla, taqsimat, qawa'id, dawabit, all of these different things, right? And we would come to the Shaykh after Asr, one day in the week. He would take the kitab and he would test us. He would test us, right? طيب. One day, one of the brothers made too many mistakes. So the Shaykh said, look, he said, lakhis wahfaz al-talkhis. He said, summarize and memorize the summary. Summarize these important points and memorize the summary, right? Then we came back another time and we were reading and we got it completely correct that day. And the Shaykh rahimahullah, he said, look, he said, Inshallah yusma'u bikum yawman ma. Inshallah, one day we will hear about you guys or something similar to that. And what I took from this is that ilm is that which you have in your chest. And I would pick up from the Shaykh, he would teach. And you would see how many things he would mention off the top of his head. And I understood that maybe his tariqah, his way of how he preserved his knowledge was that he would summarize and he would memorize his summary, which is very, very, very beneficial. And I found it to be very, very beneficial as well. Summarize the most important points. And you will see that which you have summarized is not as many pages as you think it would end up being. It's very, very, very beneficial. One thing I would recommend as well for the brothers and sisters, if they're going to summarize, buy a notebook that is long and wide. Why? Because when you are summarizing your notes, you end up summarizing more on one page, meaning you have to end up memorizing less pages. Everybody understand that point? Right? One place that you can go to, I would buy my notebooks from, is Wilco. Okay, Wilco sells some good notebooks, right? Quite cheap as well. Buy the hard back ones, not the soft back ones. Hard back that are quite wide and are long. Inshallah ta'ala. Allah yabarak fikum ikhwan. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.